Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 plan began its life in 2016 as a white paper. It was a fairly dull document filled with a combination of management speak and religious references, and it wouldn't shock me if I'm the only person to have read it in full, other than maybe the people who wrote it. It's the kind of document that's written so that people can point at it in meetings, but no one actually reads anything other than the table of contents. The white paper sets out a goal for Saudi Arabia to become a global investment powerhouse, to transform the country into a global hub, which it describes as an epicenter of trade and a gateway to the world. I don't really know what they mean by a gateway to the world, or who's outside the gate and where they even are. None of that's explained, but as I said, I'm not really sure anyone was meant to read it. There's a bit in there about improving fiscal health by cutting government spending, a bit about the need for less onerous business regulations. It says that they plan on expanding the variety of government digital services so that they can reduce delays and cut tedious bureaucracy. There's talk of wide-ranging transparency and accountability, and of the need to measure the performance of government agencies and hold them accountable for any shortcomings. In many ways it's a bit like Doge, but without the jumping around and of course the saluting. Next up, there's a section on living healthy and being healthy. It says that there aren't enough sports facilities in Saudi Arabia and that this needs to change. It says that they'll encourage widespread and regular participation in sports and athletic activities so that Saudi Arabia can be amongst the leaders in selected sports, both regionally and globally. There's a bit about improving schools, a bit about equal opportunities. You get the idea, a fairly standard government document saying that while the country is great, these are the areas we plan on improving over the next 10 to 15 years. There's no mention in the 2016 white paper of building a 110-mile-long city, an upside-down skyscraper, a ski resort in the desert, an octagon-shaped industrial complex floating in the Red Sea. There are no robot dinosaurs, artificial moons, flying cars, or beaches that glow in the dark like the face of a watch either. Like I said, it's fairly dull. Surprisingly, the document reflects on the mistakes made in developing the King Abdullah Financial District, a Saudi megaproject that had started 10 years earlier and was by 2016 plagued by delays and a lack of enthusiasm from potential tenants and investors. The white paper points out that the biggest mistake was that the King Abdullah Financial District had been started without consideration of its economic feasibility. They explain that its challenges were deepened by the fact that it had been developed in a single phase, which pushed up construction costs and could be partially blamed for a lot of the delays. They highlight that this massive development resulted in a large oversupply of commercial space and that renting out the 3 million square meters of built-up areas at reasonable prices or even achieving decent occupancy rates would be extremely challenging. They finish up by saying that their commitment is clear, that they'll seek to eliminate waste and make spending more efficient. They quote a Quranic verse. I won't read it out to you, but it calls for moderation. The white paper was authored by Mohammed bin Salman, who's known as MBS. He was the Deputy Crown Prince, Minister of Defence, and Secretary General of the Royal Court at the time. A year later, the Saudi king decided to depose his nephew, who had been next in line for the throne, and replace him with his son, MBS, who became the de facto ruler of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. In October 2017, MBS announced the first plans to build a new city, Neom, promising a lifestyle not available in today's Saudi Arabia. He told the press that the new city would be powered by clean energy and would have no room for anything traditional. Other than that, there were no real details. At the time, no room for anything traditional was interpreted as meaning a Dubai-style city with a few solar panels and windmills. Today we all recognize the term "no room for anything traditional" as meaning that you plan on drilling a huge hole into the ground to build an upside-down skyscraper, along with other non-traditional ideas like robot dinosaur parks and a giant artificial moon that will live stream images from outer space. Now, I'm of course very positive about this idea, but the Wall Street Journal came out with an article this week discussing some of the difficulties being faced at Neom. Before we dig into that, let me tell you about this week's video sponsor, ZipRecruiter, a leading online employment marketplace that actively connects people to their next great opportunity. Most business people will tell you that the greatest challenge in running a business is finding top talent. This is particularly the case in a tight jobs market. ZipRecruiter recognizes that hiring is challenging and time is precious. They help you find qualified candidates fast without overwhelming you with inappropriate resumes. ZipRecruiter has been using AI to match job seekers with employers for nearly a decade now. Their matching technology scans thousands of resumes, quickly identifying the best matches, and the invite to apply feature allows you to reach out to your favorite candidates with a pre-written personal message, increasing the chances they will apply. More than 4.3 million businesses have come to ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs, and they help 10 million job seekers with their job searches every day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/pb. You'll thank me for making hiring so much easier. Now, a few viewers of my earlier video accused me of only being positive about Neom because I'm afraid of being murdered and dismembered, but I'm not even slightly worried about that. I've been in hiding over the last year for entirely different reasons, and anyhow, no one's out to get me anymore. They told me that if I hid an AirTag in the pocket of Dan Toomey's trench coat, that I'd be off the hook, and so everything is fine now. Anyway, as a fan of non-traditional architecture and the TV show Grand Designs, I was delighted to see the Saudi Vision 2030 plan transform from a bit of rezoning and government cost-cutting to hiring a Marvel Studios concept artist to design an impossible-to-build 30-story high chandelier because the prince likes the Avengers. According to the Wall Street Journal piece, the Crown Prince compared the project to the Egyptian pyramids, and in truth, when compared to the pyramids, Neom is quite a success, as no one lives in the pyramids today either, and the pyramids don't have sustainable flying cars or a hyperloop. But you don't see anyone writing hit pieces called "What Went Wrong at Egypt's Futuristic Pyramids in the Desert." If you're a fan of innovation and technology, you'll definitely love Neom. According to Reuters, they plan to use personal data as a currency. The data will be collected from smartphones, homes, facial recognition cameras, and multiple other sensors around the city. Apparently, the data sweep will help the developers predict and customize every resident's needs. According to the Wall Street Journal, after spending more than $50 billion, the Crown Prince's sci-fi inspired dreams of an arid mountain ski resort, a floating business district, and a 106-mile-long pair of Empire State Building height skyscrapers that's Neom's centerpiece have collided with reality. They say that costs have soared, delays are ubiquitous, and a decision last year to reduce Neom's first phase threatens to deprive the desert city of the critical mass of inhabitants needed to make it a modern business hub. Now, first up, the Wall Street Journal are understating the ambition of the line. It's not going to be as tall as the Empire State Building. The Empire State Building is only 381 meters tall. The line is going to be 500 meters tall. I mean, there'd be no point in building a long, narrow city with a hyperloop underneath and gene editing facilities if it was only as tall as the Empire State Building. And anyway, the line was initially budgeted to cost $200 billion to build, and according to the images online, they've already dug a big hole in the sand, and that's probably the hardest part of the job. Once you've dug the hole, all of the other stuff like the 106-mile-long building, the flying cars, and the artificial moon are easy. I think they're most of the way there, basically. Some people are saying that it'll just be another fancy place for rich people to live. But the great thing is that it'll all be affordable housing. As think about it, if you can house 9 million people at a cost of $200 billion, that's just $22,000 per person. Where else can you live so affordably? Oh, sorry, hold on. If you keep reading, it says that they now expect it to cost $8.8 trillion, which is it's a bit more, and they've downscaled the size of the project too. Apparently, $8.8 trillion is 25 times the kingdom's annual budget. Well, I still think that it's great, and as I mentioned in the last video, they've scaled the size of the line back a little bit. Instead of building a 106-mile, 500-meter tall building, they at first reduced it to 10 miles and then to 1.5 miles by 2030, which still involves constructing the equivalent of all of the office buildings in Midtown Manhattan 3 times over in the next 5 years, according to the Wall Street Journal, which the article says would require a significant portion of the world's available steel and glass. So I guess I can see why you might not build a full 106 miles all at once. They have already dug some of the hole, which is a big deal, and I guess it's actually pretty smart of them to scale it back, as if you remember the original white paper pointed out that it had been a mistake building the King Abdullah Financial District in a single phase, as it flooded the market with unused office space that was impossible to rent out. If they build a modestly sized building, something equivalent to 3 times the square footage of all of the buildings in Midtown Manhattan, that should be much easier to rent out. The article says that some of the cost overruns are due to the fact that they're building these mega projects in the middle of nowhere, meaning that there's virtually no labor, no sizable port, few roads, and insufficient electricity. And yeah, I can see how that would make construction difficult, but the article then goes on to say that the design involves an amusement park built 1,000 feet in the air, with theaters suspended between parallel towers, and that's just going to attract people. Construction workers love amusement parks. I figure as soon as the amusement park is built, people will rush to get construction jobs in the region so that they can go to the amusement park after work. And just to be clear, for all the negativity in the Wall Street Journal, there are all sorts of new projects being added all the time. There's some sort of Japanese dragon-themed amusement park being built. There's a 50-hectare esports and video game facility, whatever that is, and a royal palace, which should be nice. This article from last month says that you can even get some sort of experimental brain implant tested on you at Neom, which will probably only hurt for a while. The article says it'll allow you to control external devices with your thoughts. You probably have to put one of those wireless phone chargers under your pillow to charge it up. Who knows? The article says that former managers and executives at Neom told the Wall Street Journal that some of the projections were completely unrealistic, but that plans were pushed ahead regardless. Apparently, the executives made the project work on paper by beefing up profit assumptions. So it seems to me that they have a spreadsheet which says it'll work. They've all of those CGI graphics showing the buildings. They spent $50 billion digging the hole and probably doing some research on how to get the giant moon thing and the glow-in-the-dark sand working. So there's no reason to believe that this won't work. They also had a big opening party in October. Will Smith, the Fresh Prince, he was there. Tom Brady, the guy from the FTX commercials, he turned up too. Alicia Keys, she attended. Come on, you know Alicia Keys, she had that big song about 25 years ago. She's not going to get involved in a failing project. Come on, you remember her. She was hired as the creative director of BlackBerry back in 2013. You remember that, back when everyone was ditching their iPhone to buy a BlackBerry? Yeah, her. It says that the party alone cost $45 million, so it was probably a good party. It was to open Sindola, which is one of the Neom projects. It's an island with some restaurants, hotels, shops, and a yacht marina. They probably should have invited the island boys, as that's who you really want at an island opening party. There were a few hitches, I guess. Apparently, the hotels were unfinished, high winds disrupted ferries and golf, and much of the site was still under construction. But other than that, I bet it was great. It says in the article that the Crown Prince wanted the project to achieve an internal rate of return of 9%, which, as Matt Levine at Bloomberg points out, is significantly higher than the standard wild vanity project rate of negative infinity. According to the Wall Street Journal, an internal audit that they got access to found evidence that Neom executives, with assistance from McKinsey consultants, used overly optimistic financial projections to justify surging costs. The audit cited deliberate manipulation of figures by certain members of management. One example is that at the planned ski resort, the audit found that costs had surged by over $10 billion, which caused the IRR, or internal rate of return, to fall below the project's target return rate. And that sometimes does happen when you spend $10 billion more than you planned on spending. To cover the gap, the nightly cost of camping, which they describe as glamping, at the ski resort was adjusted up from $216 per night to $704 per night in the spreadsheets. Now, I've never gone on a desert ski resort camping trip, and I don't judge you if you have, but it's my belief that a huge wave of human effort was required to get us to a state where we sleep indoors and have access to modern plumbing, heating, and air conditioning. And I feel that if we start paying hundreds of dollars to sleep outdoors on holiday, it would just be disrespectful to my ancestors and all of the effort they went to get us where we are today. Now, I'm going to guess that glamping is a bit better than camping, as otherwise they'd just call it camping. But $704 per night does sound a bit expensive for glamping in the middle of nowhere to me. But I'm fairly sure that I'm not the target customer, and so if you have desert ski resort glamping experience, let me know in the comment section if that's the standard rate. In another example, the price of a boutique hiking hotel room was marked up to $1,866 per night from $489 a night. Once again, I don't know what a boutique hiking hotel room is, but I'm guessing it doesn't come with a parking space. One way or another, these adjustments help to push the project's IRR up to 9.3%, which is above MBS's target of 9%. That's really the great thing about spreadsheets, is the same way that you can design any building you want in CGI, you can achieve any IRR that you want in a spreadsheet. It always works. According to the Wall Street Journal, officials tried to shield MBS from the harsh realities too. An email revealed that one of the managers told consultants that we must not proactively mention cost at all before a key meeting. So look, not everything's going well at Neom, but they do have plans to get things back in line. Officials mothballed digging an 18-mile tunnel through a mountain to cut costs. The head of the country's wealth fund suggested cutting costs by using new technologies to reduce the labor force, so maybe AI robots. From what I've read, it might be a struggle to get wage costs a whole lot lower. Neom's CEO stepped down in November after an ITV documentary alleged that tens of thousands of foreign workers had died working on the project. The current plan is to open the first half-mile section of the line, topped by a football stadium, to host World Cup matches by 2034. The development lead told an audience in January, "We'll start to go vertical hopefully at the end of this year." Saudi officials say that Neom will eventually attract private investment, but so far that's not happening. Investors so far remain wary, concerned about the scale and complexity of the projects. Many pulled their money out of Saudi Arabia after the murder of Jamal Khashoggi in 2018 too. There are some winners, however. According to the Wall Street Journal, consulting giant McKinsey and Company is reportedly earning more than $130 million annually for its services. A McKinsey spokesperson denied any allegations of wrongdoing and told the Wall Street Journal that the firm has strict protocols to prevent conflicts of interest in their engagements. If you found this video interesting, you should watch my recent video on why the world is run by old people next. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, ZipRecruiter, using the link in the description, and see you in the next video. Bye.